Alright, folks, I'm back. Sheepdog Smokey here. I mentioned in my last video that I was moving to Rumble, and I tried it, and quite honestly, it proved for me to be a worse setup than this, because fully half of the videos I uploaded over there are still pending. I cannot get a hold of anyone there, I cannot find any help documents. So I'm going to come back here, although I am still going to post there as well. Seems silly to ignore a source that might work. So I'm going to try it. Now, this is one that I actually got recommended to me from one of my followers on TikTok. Yes, the old man is on TikTok. Quite honestly, I kind of prefer it there. I get little 1-minute snippets, and I get to make 1-minute snippets. Sometimes I do, multi-part things. People will do those. But it seems like a more direct communication. And quite honestly, I have exploded over there. So I'm going to be very active there still, but I'm going to come back and start doing videos here. I don't know how much of it will be a direct lesson in history, just because, quite honestly, those just did not feel right to me. I am going to still talk about history, social sciences, all of it, but I'm going to start doing more of a, not a week in review, but looking at specific things and talking about them. Not necessarily news articles, but what's going on in the world. Pretty much an op-ed type thing. I do apologize for the mess. I'm rearranging things. But getting on to the topic of today's video, and you've seen the title, so you know what's going on. There is a documentary of sorts on Tubi TV. I will link it in the description below, about the man from 3036. I've seen the people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and other places claiming to be or to have talked to someone from the future. These people are always giving you a far-off date and telling you something big will happen. Quite honestly, something big happens every day somewhere on the planet. An election happens. A person is replaced in office. Or as we saw in Myanmar, the military decides, nope, the election was fraudulent. We're not going to allow it. God forbid, an attack happens somewhere. So quite honestly, it's like getting that fortune cookie that says, you will meet someone new today that will be very much a part of your life. Well, that's me every day. I meet a lot of people that become very involved in my life. There was a time in my youth when I read the horoscope every day in the paper. And it was either so vague as to be a literal interpretation of something will happen today, or wholly inaccurate. And I twigged this early on. It's like these people are literally just writing whatever they want, and what they'll say is, well, it wasn't meant for you. That was actually aimed at others in your star sign. Your horoscope will never always be for you. Well, why write it? But they write it because people read it. I'm not an expert in temporal physics, temporal dynamics, temporal science. The best thing I can tell you is we are all time travelers going in the same direction at the speed of 1 second every second. And that is the extent of my knowledge, other than sci-fi, which would be H.G. Wells, Back to the Future, Star Trek, Quantum Leap, things like that. Endgame was actually one of the ones that took it in a different direction, where you don't actually travel in time. You travel into an alternate dimension, and at that point you change that dimension, and so on and so forth. They did somewhat do this in Back to the Future too, where when Marty went back and when Biff went back and gave himself the diary, what changed the future? and you can't undo that without going back in time. Endgame did have that loophole closed, that pothole closed, where at the end, sorry if I'm spoiling it for you folks, but it's been out for a long time. At the end, Cap went back to put everything right. But this one is more on the lines of Looper. It is basically a theory that time travel is possible in only one direction. There is no return. Now, in the Looper movie, they used that plot device for something wholly different than Sebastian. Sebastian basically says he got here by accident. The movie opens with him explaining why he was stealing food. Now, for those like me, I'm going to stop here. For those like me who don't like spoilers and might find this interesting, and I am going to put this in the description as well, watch that whole thing first. It's basically about a half hour. Watch it, come back, listen to what my questions and my problems with this are, and then let's have a discussion. Basically, Sebastian arrives, and he is bald, as in the movie Powder, where, as in basically, I would have known this if I hadn't. Alopecia. Zero hair at any point on your body. Underarms, face, everywhere, bald. But as soon as this journalist meets him, he's got a full beard, eyebrows, hair, all of it. Now, the journalist asks him about this, and he says, due to radiation in the future, no one grows hair at all. Now, he does actually say he was surprised when he grows hair. This is my problem point number one. He had been in the past for a short time, okay? The journalist makes it clear that he saw this story and instantly started trying to find him. My hair grows fast, but not that fast. If I had zero hair, and then a matter of, 2-3 weeks later, wouldn't have this, wouldn't have full head of hair, might not even have full eyebrows. This man does. Now, he always wears a mask and almost always wears sunglasses. So, you can't identify him. Now, of course, the people who believe it are going to say, well, that's because he is afraid of being found out. He's been arrested. The government knows where he is. Trust me. They're going to have 25 people tasked only with keeping an eye on him. And they're going to have 4 or 5 other teams of 25 to rotate through so that he's never followed by the same person twice. And trust me, the people doing it are good. The journalist does eventually get this Sebastian to talk to him. They meet in the park, where he has already become so comfortable that he actually says, I like it here, it's a good place to think. If you were brand new in a world that is alien to you, would you become so comfortable with a place that quick? Doubt it. Moving on, he talks to him, and this is where he starts eventually talking about the future. Right before they begin this part of the interview, he tells the journalist to turn his cell phone off, or at the very least put it in airplane mode, because even the cell phone is emitting radiation that makes him physically ill. Now, he's able to hide that very well while talking to the man at his car. Airplane mode does not restrict radiation coming off of the phone, nor does it change the radiation in the air from cell phone signals and towers. Yes, I know, this phone, that iPad, they produce a certain amount of radiation. So does my microwave. So does virtually anything electronic today. I don't know enough to talk about 5G. I can tell you, I worked for a cellular telephone company and this is back when Sprint was calling it PCS Vision. It was very much its own version of the internet. Not every website was possible. If it didn't have a mobile site, basically, it would be so small because the phones were tiny. And over the years, we went from Vision to Vision Plus, or whatever they called it, to 2G to 3G, 4G LTE. Now the phone, all one screen, so that you have basically a computer in your pocket that could have launched the Apollo space missions. I can tell you I have carried this exact phone for just over 2 years. I have carried an iPhone, save a couple of weeks here and there while it was being repaired or I was having a replacement shipped, where I carried something very similar to this. I keep a flip simply because I know I can make and receive phone calls and I can send and receive texts. The camera on that, barely call it a camera anymore. I don't even have a data plan when I use it. And it is literally there to be a phone if for some reason this breaks and I have to have it repaired or replaced. I've actually made comments on TikTok where, if I ever just bug out, anybody comes looking for me, they're going to find my truck 100 miles from where I enter the woods, and they're going to find all my tech at my house. The most high-tech thing I will take, I probably won't, I'll probably take these. I'll actually do another video on why. Probably just do it on TikTok. I am Sheepdog Smokey there as well. Getting back to here. Basically, he blames 5G as the start of what's going to cause all this radiation that has weakened his immune system to the level where everyone on the planet has to wear a mask. But there are beneathers. And of course, he's demonizing Christians at this point. But the beneathers live in the tunnels under the cities, reminiscent of Demolition Man. Although it seems to be the opposite way, where the beneathers are more free and healthier. But basically says no one lives past 40 in the year 3036. He says by 2080, we're already going to get to that point, and we have a 5-year blackout, world wars, and basically the Rothschilds, or actually, as it is pronounced, the Rothschilds, the Red Shield family of bankers, as well as, I guess, the Gates lineage and the Bezos lineage, or the Amazon lineage, if Bezos doesn't have kids, form 3 corporations that control the globe until the Rothschilds buy them all out, and it becomes one company. So I guess you would have subsidiaries controlling part of it. Now, it's not to say that I don't think Microsoft, Amazon, and the most powerful banking family of the last century couldn't manage something like this, because, quite frankly, those 3 could easily corner the entire economy. Bezos, by basically controlling all of the buying and selling that he does, could cripple a lot of things. Gates could cripple half or more of the world by suddenly declaring that you can't use Microsoft unless you swear allegiance to him. The Rothschild family, they control the money. The Rothschild empire began because many years ago, there were 3 brothers. Well, they already had a banking empire in Germany, Rothschild, Red Shield, Rothschild, or now Rothschild. So one was sent to London, one to, I believe, Rome, might have been Milan, and one to Paris. Well, then their banking empires began to grow in England, France, and Italy, and from there they expand. Quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that the Rothschilds own 90% of the banks on this planet. They've had a century to solidify the power. And they've had very strong forces, such as Freemasons and others behind them. Well, that's a very long time to solidify an empire. So, I'm not going to use that as an example, because pretty much they already do. I mean, for crying out loud, who has not seen a Windows machine a Windows PC in any bank, doctor's office, school, or government office that you visited in the last 10 years. Yes, I know. There are some that use Mac products. You don't think Gates could find a way to absolutely ensure that no one could use anything but a PC? Or that he doesn't have someone on staff who could? If you actually believe that, you're very naive. But that goes back to the whole radiation thing. You see, yes, the phone and the tablet, they put some out. The microwave puts some out. The YouTube channel Sorted Food, sorted as in I sorted my software, Sorted Food, they actually tested this. They blanched some kale under boiling water, and then microwaved some kale. The microwave kale was actually able to retain more of its nutrients because it didn't cook as long. Radiation is not 100% bad. There are types that are. I mean, there's the line in the, I believe it was the Avengers, low levels of gamma radiation, and Fury says that can be dangerous. All radiation can. It's just like, can be dangerous if you drink a dozen of them a day. I actually used to, and I was in very bad health. I'm now down to maybe 4 a day. Still too many. I want to lose weight, but I'm drinking more water, and I'm compensating with water for the sodas I don't drink. You can't walk away from something cold turkey and not have some other effect come in. But granted, yes, I could walk away from tech right now. I have close to 400 books. I could easily drive somewhere, construct a dwelling, store my books safely so that they don't get wet or ruined, drive 100 miles away the same way that I just came, walk for a day and a half, 2 days, leaving the scent trail everywhere. Then after that time, go to this dwelling I've constructed, and I'm not going to do this to escape, say, a warrant. If I do this, it's because the world has just gotten insane, and I'm done with it. By the time anybody starts to look for me, there's not going to be a way for them to find me. And I'll be happy as a clam, trapping rabbits, catching fish, and reading my books by firelight. And I know a lot of people who think like me, because I'm not dependent on my tech. And that is the next hole in this whole theory. You see, it would not be 100% worldwide devastation if the tech goes dark in 2080. Now, granted, 2080, I'd be 103 years old. I don't know that I'm going to make it to 2080. My nephew would be 77 years old. He probably will make it there, but he'll be an old man. But I firmly believe there will always be people like me. People who, yes, we use tech. I'm very good with it. It's actually my job, information technology, supporting it. But I don't have to have it. I could easily be very happy with no computer, no cell phone, no iPad, a truck that's 30 years old but still runs, so no tech in it more advanced than an AM/FM radio, books to read, and a job sweeping floors. As long as that job allowed me to eat and keep my lights on so I could read. I know I'm in a minority, but there are people. So those people will band together. And it will be very much like Brave New World, just with the world and the small enclave being different than what we saw in the book. The small enclave will be hated by the rest of the world. They will be scorned and vilified and made fun of by the rest of the world because we will still have our faith. We will still grow food instead of chemically producing it. We will still have freedom as opposed to being a slave to the new system. Now, unlike Brave New World, when that happens, I believe that those outside those enclaves will hate them so much that they will attack And that will lead to skirmishes that will see a lot of people killed. At one point, he says the population of the Earth is just over 2 billion people. That's less than a third of what it is now. I seem to remember a verse from the last chapter of this book, about 2/3 being smited, although it may have been a third smited and 2/3 survive. Just, I don't know. The final plot hole for me is Sebastian himself. One is a chip in his hand. That I could almost, that and him knowing the word COVID, I can almost just ignore. Because there are already people playing with RFID chips, planting them in their hands, so that when they walk in and out of rooms in, say, a biotech lab, they don't have to touch doors. They can have the doors coded so they know who can and cannot enter. If you're not with someone on the list, you don't get to enter. So say you're going into a clean room. Well, when you walk up, the door opens, and you go in and you scrub and you get into everything. And when you walk up to the next door, it opens, so you don't have to touch anything to get in. His knowledge of current times. Now, there's a bit that I take offense with. I'm about to take offense, I mean a serious problem, because he literally lays out the socialist mantra. We can't believe that you pay for water to be bottled, or that you pay for this. We don't have to pay for fruits and vegetables. Our pods keep us alive, but they can help us travel, and we're allowed to work. Our clothing is free, and there's nutrient centers where we're given 5 items, but fruits and vegetables are always free. If there was radiation so prevalent that everyone on the planet is now basically suffering from alopecia, and their immune system is so compromised that they have to wear masks basically 24/7, how are you growing food? If the radiation is that bad and that prevalent, you're not going to grow anything. He wouldn't have known what a banana was, let alone that it was food. The last hole, though, is Sebastian himself. You see, at first they'd have the DNA brought up by the police report. They find no record. Wouldn't happen. I've done the whole ancestry DNA thing, and I know my trace regions, all that, but it has started telling me that I am related to people who've been dead for 80 years or 60 years. I'm a first cousin 6 times removed from Sir Winston Churchill. By using my DNA, they could actually trace me to someone who is his descendant, or that I'm a descendant of whoever from 500 years ago. They don't have that person's DNA, but they have the DNA of someone that they know is descended from this person. Now, the journalist later takes some of his hair. Same thing. 0% from any trace region. They do blood work because he says that everyone's blood is so full of basically ionized metals that they're always sick. So they do blood work to find that. Well, you could interpret blood work to mean anything you want. If you drink the wrong kind of beer, you eat steak from the wrong cow, chicken from the wrong farm, you could have something show up in your blood that you don't want in your blood at any point. These right here mean that you're going to find certain things in my blood, certain things that should not appear in a human's blood. Now, I go a week without those. 1, I'm off, and 2, a week later after that, you're not going to find any of that in my blood. Your blood is replenished very, very efficiently by the human body. So, the fact that the hair and blood have 0 markers, 0 results from anywhere on the planet, even the trace regions, tells me it's fake. I'm not making fun of anyone who watches these and actually kind of enjoys them and may believe them. I wouldn't want to do that. What I'm here to do is have a conversation. I firmly believe that this is a hoax. It's made up. It is, at worst, someone trying to mislead people into doing something, donating to him, buying him his stuff. At best, somebody playing a prank. At the end of the movie, conveniently, Sebastian is found burned beyond all recognition. Left hand missing. If the government had wanted to do that, they would not have given him the time to talk to a journalist. He would never have made it out of that police station. I do not believe time travel is currently possible, nor do I believe it will ever be possible. It is a sci-fi trope used in movies, books, and TV. And quite honestly, I'm very glad that it will never be possible, because the butterfly effect, you change the smallest thing, that could have repercussions that you can't even imagine. By Sebastian coming back and telling everyone this, was to say that, well, he's proven he's from the future, so we're not going to have 5G, and we're not going to have cell phones. We're going to scale everything back, and we're going to declare these things dangerous, and we're not going to do this, that, and the other. We could make things better or worse. There was a deal or a thing on TikTok where someone told you, you are allowed to go back and meet your 18-year-old self. You are allowed to say no more than 3 words. So, I simply held up an envelope. My words were, read this tomorrow. I did it as a joke. There are always loopholes to everything. So I would have been able to go back, meet my 18-year-old self with a letter that could have been 42 pages long, detailing the exact history of the next 25 years, 26 years of his life. By saying, read this tomorrow, it allows for me to return. Now, granted, doesn't really do much other than let me say I left before he knew anything. But the second he reads it, my life's going to change. Therein lies the paradox of time travel. Even if he waited a year to read that, my life could have been changed to the point where I never went back. If I didn't go back, my life didn't change. So then I did go back and I gave him the letter, but then my life didn't change. You see, it's a chicken and egg paradox. You'll never be able to do it. It's the same paradox put forth in H.G. Wells' Time Machine, the newest one, with, I forget all the names. I know Jeremy Irons was in it as the leader of the Morlocks. But basically, the main character creates a time machine to stop the death of his fiancée. By doing that, he ensures that is the one thing he cannot do. He cannot prevent her death, because then he would not have created the time machine. If you literally say, I'm going to create a time machine so I can go back and I can warn people about this war, if the war never happens because of your warning, you're never going to create the time machine. And if in the back of your head you say, well, I'm going to create this time machine so I can go back and take a photo of my parents when they were first married, and you know now that's the one thing you can never do, you're still screwed. If you go back, say you go back to 1930, you warn America, Italy, Britain, France, Russia, everyone about Adolf Hitler. You let the Japanese know very clearly that their entire archipelago of islands will be blown into sand if they attack us. Maybe bomb an island to prove you can do it. So World War II never happens. Hitler's still going to be an incredibly angry person. Who's to say he wouldn't recruit Goebbels and Rommel and the rest of them and wait? And then not do a 3-front war, but just invade France and take France and solidify power there so totally that it can't be broken, without just obliterating the country. You go back and kill baby Hitler. Who's to say Goebbels wouldn't have risen to power? And trust me, Goebbels was worse. That's the problem with time travel. The second this Sebastian started warning people, then there would be a lot of people, maybe not enough in any one country to make any difference, but there would have been a lot of people who would have basically started prepping. They would have been told, you basically have 50 years. Because by the time you get to 2071, it's way too late. There's nothing you can do. Well, those people could have basically pulled a blast from the past. Found a way to live for 30 years in a bunker. A bunch of people do this. Right before they go into the bunker, they all have kids. 30 years later, when they come out, their kids are 30. They've been well educated by those people. And they now begin to populate the planet with their own children. They're going to be the ones who took the warning seriously. So then, Sebastian would not have lived in the world he warned us about. I just can't see it being true. But I want to know your feelings. I want to know your thoughts. Have you watched it already, or are you going to go watch it now? After you've watched it and this, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let's actually have a discussion on this. No, not a what would you do if you could time travel, but on this actual postulate that this man actually did travel back from 1,000 years in the future almost. It is 2021. That is 1,015 years in the future. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. He looks and sounds exactly like the people today. Think about this. If you went back 100 years, I live in DFW, Texas. If I went back 100 years, my accent would be unrecognizable to anyone in Texas. If I was from Brooklyn, New York, and I went back 100 years, the people in Brooklyn would not understand a word I'm saying because of my accent and my vernacular. You see, linguistics change over time. Even Creole was different 100 years ago than it is today. Dialects come into play and die off. Accents change. Word usage and grammar and sentence structure changes slightly as a society is more and more exposed to external stimuli. Yet his accent, his sentence structure, everything, perfect American Floridian. If there is no more U.S., if there is no more any country, we're controlled by the Rothschild family. How is it that the exact dialect he would need to speak, in the exact accent he would need to use, to be understood by someone in Pinellas County, Florida, would understand him perfectly? It's all too perfect. It's all too perfectly executed for me to even begin to think it's true. But I want to know what you think. Let me know, but remember, be civil. We're here to discuss, dissent, and debate. We're not here to scream and yell like toddlers. I do want to know your thoughts. I do want to have this discussion because these are very much the type of discussions I have the most fun in. We're talking about something that we could have no way of actually testing. This is purely a thought experiment. And I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments. As always, please remember to like and share the video. I'm coming back. I don't know that I'll be doing a video a week for a while, but I am going to be making more videos. There is so much going on in the world right now, especially in the U.S., that there's going to be a lot to talk about. One day I may get back to the Class Time series, but for now, I'm going to put that on the back burner. So you'll want to be subscribed and notifications on so you know when I post. If you like the video, hit like. That does affect the algorithm. Make sure to share it with people. Widen the conversation. And until next time, have a wonderful day.